guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Beautiful and Bothered with me, your host, Johnny Ross, and we have a very special guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Casey, and I am Johnny's fiance.
So first of all, if you guys haven't checked out the unboxing video we posted recently, I did on my main YouTube channel. I let the PR boxes just pile up and pile up. There was about like 47 of them, and I did a PR boxing with Casey. It was his YouTube premiere. It was a hit. It was very fun, especially for me because it's weird doing everything alone all the time, and I just had to like open boxes and be like, here's what it is, moving on. So it was nice to have someone else there because it was like different energy, but I figured why not have Casey on the podcast and tell you guys all about him, more about me, about our relationship, because why not? So I asked you on Instagram and YouTube community posts here and on my regular beauty channel to ask us questions, and you guys had a lot of great questions. So I screenshotted some of the best ones, and we're going to get into it and answer y'all's intriguing little inquiries. Hands down, the number one was, of course, how we met. I was going back to college. I think I had done a full year of school going back at that time. So we would have met when I was 25 and you were 26. Do you want to tell the story?
Of course. I mean, that's why I'm here. So just remember, it was December. It was cold. It was a very cold winter. It was like in the teens, single digits. And we met on Tinder. And I remember...
And we talked for a little bit, but we were kind of procrastinating getting together because I was ending the semester and you were ending the semester, which we'll get to what you do for work. But
yeah, it was just a weird time. And then the holidays is always weird because like who has a first date like before Christmas, right? Like stuff like that. So we were just talking here and there. But I remember having like decent conversation. And I was definitely at a point in my life where I was like, if this doesn't work, like I need to take a break.
We've been together, which was another question. We've been together for a little over 5 years.
Yes.
To this day, the visceral feeling of the deletion and re-downloading of a dating app is like in my bone marrow. Like there's nothing more...
Nowadays, when someone asks me to look at like their Tinder or Bumble, I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah. No, but I have a different, now that I'm on the other side of it, I love looking at it because it's not mine. But when it's yours, that's the funny thing. Is like, I remember those days of it being like, I can't look at this anymore. It like gave me a visceral, like I would want to break out in hives. Anybody out there still online dating?
It's possible. It's
possible, but
it takes work.
God bless. Yes.
It really takes work. And I think people forget that in relationships, which I'm sure at some point we'll talk. Like it does take work.
Yeah.
How do we meet, right?
Yes.
So it was December. It was cold. It was gross. We were talking for a while, and then we agreed to have our first date like between Christmas and New Year's, which in retrospect is like such a weird time to meet.
Yeah.
Because you're eating leftovers, you're in pajamas, you don't know what day it is, you're watching movies, like, it's not, you don't want to leave your house.
No.
You're playing with, like, things you got or whatever.
Okay, that is such a... Not all of us are playing with the things we got for Christmas at 26, but if that gives you any more insight into Casey Coleman, that's exactly...
So anyways, we agreed to go to a restaurant that was like halfway between where we were. I got there first.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of like waiting and awkwardly like walking around because I was like, I don't want to seem like super eager.
And it was like 7 degrees.
Freezing. We got to the restaurant. They sat us right by the door at this teeny little table. And we talked and talked and talked. And I remember a couple things that night. I remember, number one, there was 2 things on the menu I wanted. And when we were talking, I was like, oh, like, I want this. And you were like, oh, I kind of want that too. And I was like, we could split it.
Yeah.
And I just remember, as silly as it sounds, like in the back of my head, I was like, wow, if this works out, like double offerings forever.
Yeah, you're going to get 2 meals. I feel like I could count on 2 hands only how many times we haven't split a meal at a restaurant.
Always split. Yeah. We maximize our options, which I love. We were just talking, and one of the things I remember that, and I was being like captivated by how just passionate I think we both are about different things. And I was at a point in my life where I was like, yeah, I'll go to a concert by myself. I'll go to the movies by myself.
Same.
You were like, I'll see a Broadway show by myself. Yeah. Like we just were both like adults, right?
Yeah.
Like, I had seen the ball drop alone, like talking about all these different things in our life where like, I'm just tired of waiting for people. And so we talked for 4 hours. The restaurant closed. The poor waitress
hated us.
Yeah, she was like, do you want anything? We're like, yeah, maybe.
Do you remember she came to, she was like, if you don't order dessert right now, you're not going to get it. And we were like, okay.
Yeah, we're like, sorry, we got to go. And so we talked until basically they kicked us out. Yeah. I walked you back to your car and you offered to drive me to my car because I had to park in free parking because I'm a psychopath about things like that.
Yeah. I was in the exact same phase because I don't know what it was. Maybe something about like going back to college and I was like, alone so much for the first time that like I really realized how much when you want to do things, it's different than living with someone, because I think organically living with someone and being with them and around them all the time, where you're like watching TV at night, whatever, it kind of scratches that urge. But when you're living on your own and you actively have to seek out like, okay, I want to go do something. I want to go to a concert. I want to go to a Broadway show, whatever the case is. You realize how difficult it is to like corral people to want to do things. And I was so tired of everybody always being like, yeah, oh my God, I would love to do that. And then when the day comes, they're like, oh, you were serious about that? Like, so I just realized like, you know, the typical storyline of like in a TV show, people like embracing independence and going out to dinner on their own. Like, I was like, I'm just going to go by myself. Yeah. Like I didn't.
And I think a very power move for you was, I remember after that first date, you were like, hey, there's this Broadway show like a week and a half from now closing, like would you want to see it? And I was like,
yeah, because I was going to see it. Yeah.
And I was like, anyway, what's the worst thing that happens is like we just go see a Broadway show and then we never talk again. Like, whatever. It's still an experience. But I remember at the time, like it was I think a week and a half away, and so we tried to pepper in a couple more dates. So in like a 2-week span, I think we went on like 4 dates. Yeah. 4 or 5. And it was like, I really like this guy. Like, why?
Yeah. Because I was going to see, it was Miss Saigon. It was closing anyway. And I really wanted to see it because I loved seeing those like old classics. Yeah. That like rarely come around. And I was in my Today Tix phase. I just discovered it, which Today Tix, great app. If you need Broadway shows, you want to sponsor the podcast.
Use it religiously.
I bought so many tickets from Today Tix, but I'm not going to give it that much free advertising. Another funny thing is I remember it was so cold even when we saw Miss Saigon. When the show was over, we got McDonald's coffee.
Within one street corner,
it was 2 blocks, I think.
Iced coffee.
Literally, it was hot coffee from McDonald's, and you know McDonald's hot coffee could...
Scalding.
3rd-degree burn.
Yes, lava.
Walking from the McDonald's to my car, which was a 4-minute walk. By the time we got to the car, the coffee was cold. Because it was so cold outside. It was like single digits with winds, if not like 0 degrees.
So bad. Yeah. And
I threw my back out. What an old bitch. Okay, so it had snowed really bad a couple days before, and I had to shovel my driveway back where I grew up, and it's a huge driveway. And I thought I was fine, and I woke up the next morning, and I like barely moved, and I threw my back out. And this was maybe like 3 days before the date, so it was fine. And it was really bad. I like nursed it for that 2 days, and then the morning of, I was washing dishes, and you're just like in that hunched over stance, and my back went out again, and I was like on the kitchen floor, and my sister and brother-in-law had to like pick me up and carry me to the couch. Yeah. And I didn't want to cancel because we obviously had the tickets, the whole 9. I drove us into the city. And
I at the time was like, oh, someone who will drive into the city?
Yeah.
Like, what a knight in shining armor.
The entire Broadway show, I had to like lean on you in a weird way because my back was killing me sitting. The Broadway theater seats are like torture devices. So, but it was funny because it was like weird things like that right from the beginning, we could be very, I don't know what word to put on it. Like, honest and raw and weird, like, oh, my back went out and, you know, I'm gonna go do this on my own anyway. You're welcome to come along. Like, there was none of that pretense of, like, the way people behave when they're going on dates with people. Like, oh, I can't tell them about this, or this, or show them this, or this until the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th date. Like, there was just none of that because I think we were both so tired of all of that that for some reason, when we started seeing one another, we both kind of symbiotically or unconsciously without the other person knowing, both were exuding the exact same level of like, fuck it, I'm gonna just, this is exactly who I am, and if you don't want to be with it, I'm fine.
Exactly. I also think that relationships take work, and I think sometimes people are like, oh my god, like everybody's looking for like Prince Charming to tick every single box, and sometimes it's like, they can in time, right? Like sometimes it just takes a little bit of like, oh, learning that gotta wake somebody up in the morning, or... Some people don't put their clothes away. Like, you know, you learn those things and it takes work. It really does.
All right, so looking at the questions, now we have one from Mindid713. She says, what moment did you know he was the one? Both of you answer.
Ooh, I know mine.
Okay, go ahead.
So twofold. When we first started dating, we had a Snapchat streak back in the day. That's how long it's been. And I remember... There's 2 things I remember. I remember right as we started like actually dating, we had a 100-day streak. And I remember asking Siri, I was like, oh, what's 900 days from this day? And it was October 3rd, 2020. And I was like, oh, October 3rd, it made me think of Mean Girls, all those things. Yeah. And I was like, oh, if we're like still together, I would propose to him on that day because like I just know. But one of the moments that really stands out to me was when I won the Hamilton lottery. So we were only together for maybe like a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember winning the Hamilton lottery. And I was like, oh, I was at your house.
And you won it
right
for the day after my birthday.
Yes. And I remember just sort of being so like starstruck, kind of like,
Yeah. Because back then it was like peak Hamilton. It was like impossible to win.
It wasn't on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
It was whatever. And I just remember sort of like winning. And we'd seen like, I think one show together so far. Mm-hmm. And I remember you saying, you were like, if you don't take me, like, that's okay. And I just remember in that moment, I was like, well, of course I want to take you.
Yeah.
And like, from there on out, it's like, this is my person.
Yeah. Because it was so early on.
I just thought it was so chivalrous to be like, you put my needs before your own of like, like if you want to take somebody out, like, and in retrospect, like, why wouldn't I have taken you? But
mine, it sounds really weird because it was like so early on. So it sounds like, I don't know, maybe too good to be true or whatever the case is. But my moment was the person I was dating before you was fine. And it was like probably my first like more serious relationship. Like we were together for like a year. But he had a lot of like just like baggage from the thing before, the relationship before. He never really wanted to commit or put a title on it, but he was so nice and we got along so well and had so much in common. And he was like, I never had to worry about anything. I knew we were like monogamous, whatever the case was. I just kind of was with him because I realized at that time, I probably met him when I was like just turning 24 or something. And I said, I was like, you know, I'd never been in a relationship before. I was like, you know, I'm getting 90% of what I would want in a relationship out of this person. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I think this is a mistake a lot of people make is they think maybe every single relationship that they're going to go into has to have the one potential. Like the person needs to have that criteria. But if you don't know even how to be in a long-term relationship, do you want to meet the person the first time and then you're gonna fuck it up because you don't know what you're doing? So I kind of had a mentality of like, okay, I know it's not going to be forever with this person, but they are 90% of what I'm looking for. They're respectful, they're generous, etc. So let me learn how to kind of function in a long-term relationship. What is it going to be like checking in with somebody all the time and having expectations from somebody and cohabitating to a certain extent and whatever the case was. So now the con of that is when you're maybe a little bit more, I was the one that would have put a title on it, whatever the case was. I always say like every single time I was like driving there or I was like going to hang out with him, I always felt like I was driving to an audition. When you're with somebody or you're dating or seeing somebody that is withholding a piece of themselves, you have to really do a lot of work to like know that you can't give more than you're getting. You have to evaluate your expectations because I would drive there and I would always in the back of my mind, it was like, oh, maybe this is going to be the time. Maybe if I'm a little bit more this way or a little bit more this way, I'll change their mind in a way. So when I started dating you, you were so, this is who I am, this is what I want. And people say that, but you meant it, like to the point that I was like, whoa, like, and not even whoa, like, you know, he's weird or anything. It was like my like fucked up conditioning was like, oh wow, his vulnerability to me isn't because of me. He just wants to be in a relationship so bad, he would do this to anybody. Honestly, between like the first and third date, I was like, wait, okay, no, there was an attentiveness to me in particular that kind of resolved that. But then I had another feeling where in my barbaric maybe explanation in my head, I didn't feel that like feeling I thought you were supposed to have. Like those butterflies and is what I equated it to. But then at some point during the 4th and 5th date, I believe, which was very quick. We had like 5 dates in maybe like 2-3 weeks. Yeah. I kind of said to myself when I was ruminating on it, like, no, you dumb bitch. It's not that you don't have butterflies. It's that there's an absence of worrying, nervousness. You don't feel like you're driving to an audition every time. And I realize that so many people equate that feeling of like butterflies. They almost get it synonymously entwined with having to like beg for someone's affection. I realized that was the case. And on the 5th date, we were watching Stranger Things or whatever. I couldn't believe, but I felt so comfortable that I just like said all of this to you that I was like, you know, exactly what I just said, like the absence of butterflies, so on and so forth. And for me, the moment was 99% of people would hear someone saying to them like, you know, I thought I didn't have butterflies for you because of XYZ, but now I realize it's this. And even though the point of me was saying that you're not making me worry, etc., people are very egocentric and take everything, you know, personally in that way. and you didn't take any of it personally. You let me have the feeling, and then you quoted Perks of Being a Wallflower, where you just said your response, literally when I was done, was, yeah, well, we accept the love we think we deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And I, especially at that point in my life, I had been around so many narcissists that I was just like, what? It was so foreign to me that someone could just let me feel a certain way and not make it about themselves and just offer back advice, like, objectively. Yeah, like, that was kind of the moment. Like, on the 5th date, I was like, okay, that's it. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, but you talk about, like, manifesting or whatever, and as I've gotten older, I've thought back on it. I think it might have even been, like, the 3rd or 4th date. You were leaving my house, and you were driving home, and in the moment after you had left, like, feeling the feeling of it, and I said out loud to the universe over and over again, like, this is what I want. Did I ever tell you that?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah. But I said it again and again. I was like, this is what I want.
It's funny hearing you say that because I thought of another moment, which was literally like, I think that same date when we were like, what are your thoughts on breakfast?
Yeah.
And at the same time, we were like, it's like the greatest meal of the day. And I was like, wow.
That was a big, yeah. Because our life revolves around food in general, but breakfast was the thing. Someone said, what's your favorite meal together? Breakfast. If we're going for like meal together, that's an event. Like it's
a ritual.
Every weekend, one of us takes the reins and makes like full blown
like
everything.
Tater tots, waffles, pancakes, English muffin.
Which secret breakfast hack? When he says tater tots, I learned this from like some friend I had for 5 seconds when I worked at a restaurant for a million years of my life. They made tater tots and you just like do it in little like butter, oil, seasoning, etc. Let them soften, and then when they get soft enough, you like take your spatula and like chop them up in a way, and they become the greatest hash brown things you've ever had in your life. Yeah,
they're so good.
But then, what's the favorite meal? Which I think someone else asked was
like what we cook for each other.
Yeah, I don't think I could pick just one thing. Your white chicken chili is to die for.
We love food.
We love food.
Your bolognese recipe you found is really good.
The penne bolognese.
Your chicken pot pie is really good.
You're missing your favorite thing. Fried chicken.
Oh, I have not finished this coffee.
Yeah, I was like, you asked me to make it. Like, you like begged me to make it once a month.
I know. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, actually, that supersedes everything.
Yes.
He makes like a 27 seasoning fried chicken.
I had a moment where I wanted to make, my mom always made like Italian chicken. It's more like an Italian, thinner, smaller breadcrumb, whatever. And I loved it, but I wanted to make like fried chicken, like crispy, KFC, like crunch, Popeyes level, like whatever. So I researched it, did it, and I did it, and the breading came out incredible. But the more and more I did it, I realized like I am like a Southern person at heart. Like soul food.
So much butter.
Oh, I'm Paula Deen, like minus the,
a lot of butter.
Oh.
An alarming amount of butter.
Oh, that's another funny story. We were dating, like at this point, it was a little over a year, and we were cooking together.
Like,
and
can I tell you something?
He was nervous. He like turns to me.
He was cooking, and I was like, I have to tell you something. I was like, you use an alarming amount of butter. Like,
and I cracked up because my family growing up, like that was nothing. Like we butter. Because I don't know, we weren't a big like oil family because like olive oil does what it does, but it doesn't add any flavor really. It does, but not the way butter adds flavor. Like, oh my God. Then I kept cooking it and I really realized like, I was like, okay. I mean, it had a shit ton of spices, but I was like, I want like Popeye's like spicy kick, whatever. And it is my crowning achievement. Yeah.
It's really good.
There's so many stuff.
I make really good lasagna. You
like lasagna, Maron. That's amazing. Love it. B. Sedkowski asks, what do you bicker about and what do you bond over? So the reason I asked that is because our biggest bicker, it took us about 2 years to realize.
Chowder story. That's how we really learned. We one day.
That was my fault. Because I wanted it.
Yeah.
Why did I think that?
It was August.
Yeah.
Like 100 degrees.
So hot.
We live at the time I was living in a small apartment with not the best like airflow, and we decided to make chowder. Corn chowder. Boiling corn husks.
Boiling. We had to borrow a pot because we didn't have a pot big enough. From your aunt who said to you, why do you need this? And we told her what she was doing, and she was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? She's like, it's 100 degrees out.
She doesn't curse. She was like, no. What? But we realized like in the kitchen, like we just clash because I'm an eyeballer. I like to just like, I don't want to make a mess in the kitchen. I make great food, but I eyeball my milk, cream, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
You dirty everything.
Yeah.
It's
well,
like
I'm a measurer.
Flour on the ceiling.
Yeah.
There's just, it's a mess.
Well, so, and my philosophy behind that is I'm all about eyeballing things. But when we make a recipe for the very first time, if you eyeball everything and you don't like it, you don't know why you don't like it because you don't remember what you did. So I like to follow the recipe verbatim. And then if I'm like my chicken, and then I'm like, oh, I need more kick. I need more spice. I need more whatever. Then I add to it. And I also like to bake more. So I love the measuring, the accuracy of it. So the kitchen, we've learned to this point, honestly, like unless one of us asks the other one for assistance, rarely is the other person even in the kitchen. Because we're both like alpha cookers. We're both great cooks. So one of us takes the lead.
Or like a Thanksgiving where it's like, okay, we're going to tag team. And
100%.
You do this, you do that.
But it's so funny because a lot of people, well, my mom's a very good cook and my sister is an amazing cook. You two could have a cooking show. You two have the complete... Oh my God, the biggest chemistry in the kitchen. Yes. And me and my mom have amazing chemistry in the kitchen. I think there's something about it where the other person, whoever's taking the lead or whoever's recipe it is, like surrenders to the other person a little bit more, but something about you and I, in the kitchen, it doesn't. And then the other part of the question was, what do we bond over?
We bond over a lot.
Everything.
Yeah. We love like a lot of the same shows. We like to show each other different shows that we've liked. Broadway, RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh God, yeah.
Breakfast.
Yes. But one of the early things I remember was, in my mind, memory-wise, was Great British Bake Off.
Yes.
Because I was going to college and it was really, I had like basically started living here at that point. Like I was here 6 days a week and I was like exhausted because I was working every single weekend. I was going to school every day of the week, back and forth, going all the way, like 40 minutes away where I was living, like in the house I grew up, packing a bag, coming here, living out of a bag for 6 days. And I was so tired for that 3 years that I remember specifically, like we had gotten into Bake Off together. And there was something about that, like at night sitting together and watching Great British Bake Off was like our thing. So Chrissy Cat 95 asks, does your fiance have a different job, not influencer, and is it hard to make the two mesh? So
not an influencer. But I work at a college. I do student activities. I do a lot of things in my job, and I've been there for about 7 years. Large scale event planning. I do things like homecoming. I work with a lot of clubs and organizations, training, hiring. I really do a lot at my job, and sometimes it's a lot, but now I'm really in a groove with it. I kind of know all the ins and outs of it, and I really enjoy it. College was a very transformative time for me, so I feel very fortunate to give that back to college students. And it's a fun dynamic. I work with really good people and I get to work at my alma mater, which is really rewarding. To the point about, is it hard to balance? I remember
it mesh? Yeah.
It meshes now.
Yeah.
I think very well. It's funny. I remember early on, like when you were doing bridal makeup before you because I don't think people realize
that was different. Yeah.
I don't think people realize
I don't think my pre-influencer, which I despise that word, career, that meshed worse.
Oh, well, I was going to say pre-pandemic, like you were taking classes during the week, you were doing bridal makeup on the weekends. And
when we had met, I think I was freelancing to start for Laura Mercier and Dr. Dennis Gross. And then I transitioned into bridal makeup.
And I just remember like I would be waking up every day
I felt so bad
to go to work. And then on the weekends, I'm like, I get to sleep in. And you'd stay over and you'd be like, oh, I have to be up at 5 a.m. for a wedding. And I'm like, will I ever sleep in?
I know. You really barely slept in on the weekends for the first
it was
3.5, 4 years
horrible.
we were together.
And so I don't think people realize like the pandemic is what brought us to this place, right? With a career and all these other things. But it works really well now. I think I've tried to help you as much as I can of doing things like this.
Oh God, I mean, you're phenomenal with like at this point, especially like it was funny getting these questions because like a lot of people were framing it as though like how do you deal with his fame? Like I'm like Beyonce. I always joke around that I'm like gay famous. Like if I go to Ulta or Sephora, people recognize me, but it's not like I'm getting stopped on the street.
Yeah. When I go to Sephora, I sometimes want to be like, do you know who my fiance is?
Yes. But it's still a lot of work where I'm still building up, like working 12-hour days, 6 days a week doing this. Work. Yeah. But you're so phenomenal, like cooking dinner. We used to, it was much more balanced, but you cook dinner now like 6-7 nights a week, practically.
You eat, you shower.
Literally, yeah. You're like, you make sure I'm like a human being, which is phenomenal. Even before the influencer thing, I think, obviously I had made the decision to go back to school before I had met you because I didn't want to work weekends. Meeting you and not wanting to constantly not have time together on the weekends or be exhausted. Because, I'd be home from a wedding at like 2:00, but I was like ready to drop because I had been up since 5 a.m. I had just done 7 girls' makeups, and I felt like I wasn't enjoying our time together, like when we had it. So I think now more than ever, it was hard in the beginning of doing content creation because I think the pandemic happened and we were together all the time, which that had its own challenges.
And the world stopped. Like
totally.
I was working remotely, like that was horrible.
Yeah.
I don't even want to get into it because it's not worth it. But.
Well, I was going to say, I think it might be like a nice thing to share because I got so much benefit from Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard, like sharing that they did this.
Oh, yeah.
And even during the pandemic, like we were fine. We were amazing. We never like fought like crazy, whatever the case was before the pandemic. But the pandemic was so hard for me, which I've touched on, so I'll be very brief about it. But, I went to cosmetology school, got all these makeup jobs, didn't want to do that, went back to college, started doing bridal makeup, whatever the case was. And that was from obviously 19 to when I graduated college, I was 28, turning 29.
And you moved in January 2020.
I had officially moved in, yes, January 2020. So I graduated college, it was all this change. So I stopped that routine, moved all my stuff from 40 minutes away where I grew up, actually into the house, but your sister was living here still at the time, so there was like 3 of us in the apartment, and it was just a lot of change for me in that time. And I was going to start applying for jobs, which was very disparaging even before the pandemic, and I applied for 200 jobs that month, whatever. Pandemic happened, and all in the same day, March whatever, like 8th or something, I got a text from my boss, bridal boss, saying 8 months worth of work was canceled, so I was pretty much unemployed for 8 months. And a half hour later, the one job interview I got told me they were going on a hiring freeze, and I came home and I had like, I think I was like one of the hardest I've ever cried. I was in a bad place. Like a friend that I had made, you know who.
Oh.
Before the pandemic, I was in a theater group and I loved performing, and it was an amazing experience, and I loved the people I was meeting, whatever. I helped a lot. Like I did the programs for everything. I tried to help the best way I could on top of going to school and still trying to pursue the goals I had. And when the pandemic happened and obviously all theater got canceled, it became very evident to me that now that I was no longer of use, the main person that ran the theater company that I considered a very good friend just pretty much ghosted me. Like every text, every call, like it was very evident there was no interest in there was really no friendship there. And that devastated me because it was the first time in a lot of years, an adult friendship, I had allowed that to happen. Or not that I allowed it, but it had happened. And I was cognizant for a couple years before that to not let that happen again, because that would happen to me a lot in my early 20s. And that wrecked me, like going like early on top. That was another, a spoonful or a scoop of ice cream.
And I think like the pandemic, right, brought out all the ugly in the world. Like we were just not in a good place. We decided to go to therapy.
Couples therapy. But I want to say I was in a lot of it was we both had things, but I was in a very bad place where I was so depressed and I was so hopeless because I felt like I got my bachelor's degree in 3 years. I took summer classes. I was like so 4.0. Psychotic. Yeah, 4.0 to catch up with everybody my own age that for everything, literally my 10 years worth of work to come crumbling down. I always say it felt like I was running this marathon and broke my leg 5 feet from the finish line. And it was like a sick joke. And then the scariness in the beginning of feeling like there was like this disease in the air, and it was like hard to even materialize and wrap your head around that. And I just was so short-tempered and depressed and whatever that I think every couple, it was so difficult. And I had said to you that I had heard on Dax Shepard podcast that, he had gotten out of, when he met Kristen Bell, he was in a 9-year, I believe, open relationship. And Kristen Bell said so early on in their relationship, they didn't even have any problems like we felt. There was nothing detrimental to going on, but she said, I feel like I've never dated someone that was in an open relationship. I don't know. We're going to run into problems. Yeah. So let's go to couples therapy.
It's
and
like
he was
your
resistant.
Car. Yeah, they always say.
Yeah.
You would take your car to the shop like every so often. It's a tune-up.
Your engine doesn't need to explode for you to go to the mechanic. Exactly. And he said, he was like, what do you mean? Nothing's wrong. And she's like, okay, well, let's talk to somebody to make sure nothing's wrong. So we did that. And the reason I want to share it is because I think it was the best thing we ever did. It was so valuable.
Oh, yeah. I was very resistant to it at first. Because like, we're not even married yet. Like, we need to go.
Well, again, you had the mentality of nothing's wrong.
Literally now I'm like, go to therapy, go to couples therapy. Like, go.
And we have to, I mean, the woman we got, she was our age, Vanessa. She was the greatest woman.
Vanessa.
Yeah.
She saved us. Like, she really
did. Because
gave us the tools.
But believe it or not, I almost give her more credit for like saving us individually. That's what I got out of it. I got more personal therapy out of this couples thing than I ever did from a single therapist, because I think, and I also want to urge people, go to couples therapy with your best friend, go with your parents, go with your siblings, like, because I don't think people realize how much of your personality and your decisions, which shouldn't be the case, but this is the world we live in, is indicative and based on the relationships you have with other people. She gave us so many tools to realize, like, when we're in a conflict or the way we view the world, this is how you react to it. This is how you react to it. Here's the stages of an argument. And I was this exact archetype. You were this archetype. And once we were aware of it, it was almost like everything clicked in where we were like, holy shit, we have not had a fight since then. Like, since, because I don't know, it gave us so much perspective of like why bother, like that mentality. It was absolutely phenomenal.
Which, to just bring it back again, because I know people like they're asking like, oh, you seem so perfect together. It's like, it takes work.
Oh my God.
It takes work. Like, it takes talking to one another and communicating. And there are sometimes you have to have your rituals and those things that are important to you. But it's also about taking some time to say like, hey, I know you got a lot going on, but let me know when you can sit down and talk about these next few things. So it takes work. But
speaking of which, Raleigh Murphy asks, how has your relationship changed since your career has skyrocketed? Parentheses, he is so cute, meaning you.
There's a lot more mail.
Yes. I think I'm less crazy. Because honestly, it's alleviated a lot. And that's the thing. It's not no benefit of all this. Like I said, it's not like I'm getting recognized on the street. I don't care about any of that. It's I don't think people realize. Yeah. My accountant can attest. My TikTok blew up February of 2021. I didn't make my first dime as a social media person until the beginning of 2022. From 2011 to after high school to 2021, so 10 years, I literally was lucky if I made $12,000, $13,000 a year. And I lived on that, still doing what I wanted to do, still saving money, driving my car. And obviously I met you for the latter half of that, but
16-year-old car. Yeah,
my 16-year-old car. She's still running strong. Thank God. Yeah, I lived on $12,000 a year. So now making better money, it's just and nothing about our life has changed. Like, it's not like I still drive said car, like
it's missing a side mirror. It's been smashed off 3 times.
Crank windows. Yeah, like I've made no purchase, like crazy purchase, other than like, maybe we're like, okay, we bought a new bed frame and mattress, like, because now that we're living by ourselves, like stuff like that. And I don't worry about having to buy that stuff now, but I didn't make a big purchase. I think for me, it's the ease of security of like being able to save money, for our future and,
for a house and a wedding and things like that. But I also think I just knew early on, I was like, this is my person. Like, this is my person. And so I want to protect you. And this is a partnership. And so whatever that means, we'll figure it out. And we've been doing it. So
another question that works well with that is, Schweetz_girl. How would you say that? Schweetz. Yeah. Says, how do you remain grounded? Which there's nothing to not be grounded about. But I wanted to say, and make time for each other in a way.
Mean, we have dinner together every night.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
And then we try to, most nights if we can, like set a cutoff time. Yeah. My dream in life, is like horizontal by 10 p.m. We watch an episode of Murder, She Wrote or Frasier. We've been watching that recently and just decompress. And just have that. But we eat dinner together every night. I think that's important. There's obviously nights where you're filming really late. Yeah. So I just try to pick up the slack wherever else. But I think we just keep each other in check. And, we communicate throughout the day of, even sometimes just a quick, like, I love you.
I give you so much credit. And I mean, this was something that I loved about you so early on was, we've been together 5.5 years. And I don't think you've ever not called me on your way home from work.
Yeah.
No matter what. Or when I always called you when I was leaving every wedding or leaving class back in the early days. And we're always we're each other's best friend. I don't know. We want to talk all the time. Like, you're my favorite person. But on top of it, I think it's better now than it was in the beginning of me doing content creation because I was so like, I couldn't believe it was happening. I was working psychotically that
like, I have to post Monday by noon.
Yeah. And I never sacrificed that for personal time because I was like, I need to invest in it. And I think honestly, only now this year am I starting to be like, okay, I didn't post today because I want to. Yeah. We want to do something. Yeah. It is what it is. Like I'm finding the balance a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, now we have a question from Mr. Ken Dennis, who is another makeup artist on Instagram that I follow. I love him. I loved this question so much. What's your proudest moment of each other's?
That's a great question.
Right?
One of the ones that comes to my mind is probably last year when you went to YouTube's Beauty Fest. Because I just felt like you had been working for so long. Yeah. And to get that, like, I think I'm going to go to LA. Like, I'm going to buy a ticket. Like, what do you think? And I was like, do it. Like, this whole time I've been like, just invest in yourself, right? I was home, like, making dinner, watching you on TV. And Tracy Ellis Ross is, like, in the shower. And I'm like, there's Johnny in the background. Yeah. Like, stuff like that. Because you've just worked so hard. And I remember on our first date, like, being enamored by you. Yeah. And I remember you talking about your dreams. And you had on your whiteboard in your room, you had, like, a vision for, like, a makeup thing you wanted to design with one of your friends and how it was going to look and all these things. And I remember, like, you were the type of person, like, when you put your mind to something, you can do it. Like, I've seen you refinish a table. I've seen you change a tire. I've seen you spackle a shower. I've seen you
tile a shower.
Whatever. Spackle to,
I'm the handy one in the relationship.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
We always said that even on our first date. I told you all about how I wanted to start a cosmetics, like a makeup brand.
Yeah. So I think to see you just doing that is, like, incredible to me. Another proud moment. Sorry, we one time went to a carnival, and you got the dart on the bullseye thing.
That was such a flex. Oh my God. Was that the first year we were? Yeah, that was the first year we were dating. So every year in our town, we're obsessed with this. They do a carnival, like a Gilmore Girls level,
so like fun ride,
shut down the street for a week. Yeah. And we were only dating for like 6 months, 7 months at the time. And there was a game where it was like throw the dart and it had to pieces of paper this big with a little red star, but it wasn't even a full solid star. It was like just the borders of a star. It was so small. It was 1 in 1 million odds. And
needle in a haystack. And you...
Again, talk about, I don't know what it is.
$4.
Not only with you, but just manifesting things or asking the universe in general. Mr. Frugal over here didn't want to spend any money on games. And I was like, live a little. And it was $4 and I played it was $2 a game and I played 2 games. And you got 3 darts. The first 3, I didn't get anything. The second 3, I did one. In my head, because we were only dating for 6 months, you really wanted like a prize that was in the thing. I said in my head, like, again to the universe, I was like, let this happen, because this would be such a flex when you're dating somebody. I did it, and I fucking nailed it, and I got it.
And the guy was like mad.
He was pissed. Yeah, but it was such a a moment of like a 90s TV show, Chad Michael Murray, Hilary Duff, of like winning the prize for your date. It was like a big, thank you. Yeah, God, my proudest moment. You're such a nice person all day, every day, that like I am proud of like just the person you are. But milestone moments, I think it has to do a lot with like anything related to your career, because I think I'm much more aggressive to a detriment sometimes. And you're so kind that there's times where I think you have even express that you're frustrated with the way things go. So when you value your abilities and stand up for yourself in certain ways, I get so proud, because you inevitably end up getting rewarded for it. So any big like career milestones you've had. Another thing was getting as far as you did with the Pixar interview. Because Casey always says his dream is to work for Lego or Pixar, and there was an opening at Pixar, and you literally got to the final interview. And honestly, it was between you and one other person. Yeah. And I think the only reason you didn't get it was because the other person lived 2 seconds away.
They wanted someone to start immediately.
Yeah, and you lived across the country, and had said to them, like, are you going to give me any more money to relocate? And they said no. Yeah. So I think that was the main thing. But you were so nervous. You always say, like, there's not a shot in hell. And I think because of your job, you having to do so much above your job description that when you go to any other job, they're like, I can't believe you've done all this, that you undervalue yourself. And when I see your value being rewarded by other people, it's like phenomenal to watch.
That was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
That was like, oh my God, Pixar, Lego, maybe someday.
I Love Green on YouTube asks, I'm curious if your fiance is also passionate about makeup and skincare like you. You guys are awesome. And then I want to couple that with, because I know know the answer to that question on Instagram _Embris with a Y _ what's your favorite hairstyling product? Quote, this made him so happy. Mostly your fiance's swoopy waves. Okay, so are you as passionate about makeup and skincare?
Absolutely not.
Yes.
I do occasionally like a face mask. But I wish I could barter makeup for food because
yes. He always says my PR. He wish he could trade it for food at ShopRite.
I'm like, there's just so much.
But then talk about your hair journey, which we're gonna make a whole video about hair based on the PR. You guys said it a lot, and I want to have Casey in it because my hair's my hair, and like I'm obviously not like a woman or have a woman in the house that I could show you techniques on at the moment. So he's a big hair success story. So,
but a few months ago, fell in love. You told me about this product. I was like, I want to do something different. You were like, oh, try this like brioche.
Well, what was the inspiration? You were going for hairstyles, hair or something?
Maybe.
But you wanted to like, maybe like the...
I started parting it the other way and was like, I've been doing this wrong my whole life.
Yeah, and I think your hair's very thick, and it was because of the curls, it can get very frizzy.
And you had this may have been around the time you had met Matt Loves Hair.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, like I just was like enamored by this content.
You followed him because I met him and you loved his videos and started to kind of ask me questions. Yeah. I could tell you were fishing about like, what should I be using?
So you recommended this one product, like a Briogeo thing.
The Briogeo curl define, like the Briogeo curl line. And you use, so we got to try it at Sephora. I got you the samples, the smaller size, because it's a little more, it's a nicer shampoo and conditioner. And it had the shampoo, conditioner, the leave-in, the mask, and the styling cream.
Yeah, and now I'm like militant with it.
But it is, it was almost immediate. And I've recommended, seeing what it did to your hair, I recommended it to so many other people with curly hair in my life.
I posted about it on Instagram where I was like, I just want to announce I have a new
immediately,
shampoo.
The frizz was gone. It started to define your curls so much more. It was like a big, big deal. So Briogeo, you are like obsessed with. And I've used the repair thing because obviously dyeing my hair. Also obsessed. Briogeo, I'm like obsessed with. No,
I love like this. I'm like in a hair renaissance right now. Yeah. My student staff are like, grow a mullet. I'm like, not with this. Not with this.
Yeah.
Not doing it.
Sheila on YouTube asked, who takes longer to get ready in the morning? Me. T Garden Chicken on YouTube says, tell me in caps the one thing about the other person that makes them perfect for you. Our humor and everything is so aligned where we have so much in common in that regard. But anybody else in my life, probably other than my best friend Bethany, any other person that I've met in my life, we had all of that in common. But they also were like me, where they were like a pessimist and kind of had like a, view of the world. Yeah. And that runs its course after a while, because when the bonding over everything is maybe the negativity in the world or whatever the case is, it doesn't have a long shelf life, because then eventually you just kind of both run out of steam as far as a relationship goes. But you, to me, like my best friend, are the only other person I met that has everything in common with me. But you are such an optimist, and you are such a, this is going to work out, let's do it, that that yin and yang aspect for me is what makes us work so well.
Yeah. I think with you, I always feel safe. Like, I just know you're gonna like make me be okay. Like, if I'm like, I don't know how to get there, like, I just know you're gonna be like, yep, I figured this out. We're taking the L line to the blue thing. And I'm just like, okay. Like, I just know that there's always a level of like, with you, I'm at home and I'm safe. And
I have very few friends for that reason. Like, I've whittled it down at this point that, like, if you've been in my life for a decade, like, those are my people and I could count them on one hand. But I protect those people at all costs. Like, because that's it. Like, that's the only thing that matters. I apologize. Gellis Barber asks, are both your parents supportive and coming to your wedding? If not, I volunteer as tribute to be someone's stand-in mom. That is absolutely adorable.
So sweet.
My God, people like that make me want to cry. You're doing the Lord's work. R. Seto on YouTube says, related to LGBT topics, did you ever get aggression, stares, harassment when you're out with your partner? How do you cope with it? Tella MPRNCS on Instagram says, when are you getting married? Where are you going to wear? So wedding questions, etc. So breaking it down, like, are parents supportive?
Yep.
Yes.
So our
everyone's coming to the wedding.
They're all coming to the wedding. We're so excited. We're getting married this summer. We got
getting married in June.
Got a lot of things planned. We still have to figure out what we're going to wear.
Yes, we know what we're going to wear, but we haven't gotten it yet. Yeah. Parents, phenomenal. I mean, we could have a whole coming out story podcast for a different day, but
well, and I think, the parents, at least with my parents, like, my mom just struggled with it at first because she just wasn't expecting it, but we're fine now. We have a great relationship. She loves to send us rainbow items every once in a while.
Yes, she's adorable.
Very sweet.
And then the other part of the question was, how do you deal with like aggression or stares, etc.? Which this is an interesting thing because I think for me being who I am, like on the internet, like, and wearing makeup, whatever the case is, I think and this also goes back to like the protection aspect for me and the kind of person I am, is I think you're a lot more comfortable being like wearing, I don't even know, walking around the city wearing a sweatshirt that says like queer in rainbow, where no, I wouldn't. Because to be honest with you, it's not that I'm like as proud as can be, but for me, everything goes back to, I think I'm in a place in my life where my career and my relationship with you, especially the little kid in me, is in such awe and disbelief that like this happened, because I never thought it would be that way, that I'm so protective of it, that anything that could potentially harm that or put that at jeopardy, I can't put myself in that position. And I always say like, okay, if us not holding hands on this street or wearing that sweatshirt or bringing attention to something means this is the world we live in, that you and I don't end up being victims of a hate crime, and whatever the case is, that's worth it to me, because that is, but I think you're a little braver in that regard. And it's funny because in college, I think you had more difficulty coming to terms with being gay, or like maybe even like that whole story where I was more comfortable, but now we've almost like flip-flopped.
Yeah. Well, I think we're fortunate. We live like right outside New York City, so it's
very
definitely
lucky.
Liberal.
New Jersey, it's specifically where we are in Jersey, even like is very fine.
Feel fine about it. The library flies the like rainbow flag for Pride Month. Sometimes I think about it, right? Like I think about, okay, what could happen, or I'm cognizant of it. And, if we're walking down like a dark alley in the middle of the night, not that we're ever doing that, but occasionally, right? Like it might run through my mind, but I've spent so much of my life, the first 20 years of my life, like not being who I am, that now I'm just not in a place where I don't want to not be myself. So
but we really don't have to deal with anything like that, thank God. I mean, mostly like sometimes when we've traveled, like certain things, like certain but it's at this point, I don't know, and it's maybe a symptom of getting older. It's just like water off a duck's back, like whatever, like call me a fag, like it is what I'm
gonna sleep great tonight. Find your people, like find somebody, a friend, somebody. I think the internet can do more good than harm. It's just about finding the right people and things that you trust, and just being smart. I think sometimes people put themselves in really like difficult situations. That it's like, you just got to be cognizant of like your surroundings and what's going on.
To wrap it up, little rapid fire. Someone asks, I believe basically, what is your favorite character to play in your skits, and what is your favorite character to watch?
I love when you do. Trevor's my favorite because Trevor is modeled after of your brother-in-law. But I occasionally like to pepper in. I'm like, oh, like I didn't know you're not supposed to wash your hair every day. And
you've inspired some. As you can see from the PR unboxing video. My favorite character to play, hands down, has to be the Mac employee. There's something that is so, because I know that person. Like playing that person is in my bones, and I always joke around, if I ever I would love to be an actor. I would love to get into it more. I always want to play a villain, because I just think it's so fun to drop into that just horrible, insulting. That's why my favorite TV shows, I mean, Will and Grace, the Karen Walker of it all is my favorite, because just that vapid, insulting, but oblivious to how they're coming across, which Barbara has that too, but there's something, Barbara's harder because it's a lot more whatever, and I'm like playing a woman and, the whole 9 yards. But I know that gay guy, and the Mac worker I could play for the rest of my life. That's my absolute favorite character to play.
Trevor.
Does he ask to be or want to be in any of your comedy skits? I would definitely put you in a comedy skit.
Should I be in the comedy skit?
Let us know. Who should he play? What should he do? Etc. We're talking, wigs, whatever. He'll do I'll make him do anything. Does he ever let you put makeup on him? You don't you don't care that it's not like you ever asked me. You can't. You would let me, but you don't.
Maybe that'll be a video where you do my makeup, I do your makeup.
You have to do my makeup in a video. Let us know if you want to see him doing my makeup. That would be quite the experience. This was so fun. I'm so sorry if we didn't get to your questions. You guys submitted a lot of questions, but
we'll do this again.
We have them on lock. So if we do another video together, we can answer them as we're doing the video, or we can have Casey on another episode and talk about them more. But thank you for being on. This is very nice. We're heading to a Broadway show right now, actually, in the city. As always, guys, thank you so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe on the official Beautiful and Bothered YouTube channel. If you have some time, leave a little 5 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, like the video on YouTube, do anything you can to boost the algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for spending this time together with me each week. I love you. Go ahead.
I hope you are happy, safe, and healthy. Remember, you are beautiful.
Woo! Bye, guys. See you next week.